I would be prepared to do whatever it takes to save lives, because we cannot get the country moving until we control the virus. That is the fundamental flaw of this administration's thinking to begin with.
So if the scientists say shut it down?
I would shut it down. I would listen to the scientists.
Well, that is newly nominated Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden saying tonight he'd be prepared to shut down America's economy altogether if scientists he trusts recommend doing that. So let's talk about where we are tonight in the fight against the pandemic with the pastor of Grace Community Church in California, John MacArthur, who's been under fire for holding in-person services, and economics research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Joel Griffith, who is tracking a wide array of COVID data across the country. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Shannon. Good to be here.
Okay, so Pastor, I know that you all have won a temporary part of what you're fighting. My understanding is that it's not over yet, and I want to read something also from a different church. This is Harvest Rock Church. They got a letter from the Chief Assistant City Prosecutor in Pasadena telling them this: your compliance with these orders, not holding services, is not discretionary. It's mandatory. Any violations in the future will subject your church owners, administrators, operators, staff, and parishioners to the above-mentioned criminal penalties, which, by the way, include jail time and fines, as well as the potential closure of your church. Pastor, what's the update on what you guys are facing there in California?
Well, from the standpoint of the police and an arrest, I've been told personally by the authorities of the police department that there is no scenario that they can even imagine in which they would come and close down Grace Community Church and put anybody in jail, because they enforce the law, and health mandates and governor's mandates don't constitute law. So we're not expecting that, but that doesn't mean they don't continue to attack us. They attack our constitutionally protected right to worship together, even with low COVID numbers at this particular point. And they drag us into court.
Well, and I know this
Monday will be the 4th time we've gone to court.
Right. And I know for this one church that got the threatening letter about jail time, not only for the pastor, but for the congregants, they are doing social distancing, masks, and all kinds of other things, taking temperatures when you come in. And I know every church is handling this in a different way. I want to ask you, Joel, about, first of all, I want to put up a map that you guys are tracking areas to see what the death toll trend is. And it's really cool. People can click on it. You can try to find your own county. You're doing county by county. And I want to put up some of the things that you found. You say just 1% of the counties in the U.S., representing 17% of the population, are responsible for almost half of the country's COVID-19 deaths. Overall, only about 10% of the counties in the U.S. contain 90% of all the COVID-19 deaths, even though those counties include 60% of the population. I found that very interesting and surprising. And listen, I've been covering this thing for months. Were you surprised by anything that you guys uncovered in the data?
Yeah, I think that we are really trying to help the country see what the pundits elsewhere aren't telling them. And that's that this is a very concentrated virus. We know that more than half of all counties actually have 5 or fewer deaths. And like you pointed out just now, a lot of these deaths that we have are focused on 30 counties. That's 1% of all counties that stretch from Philadelphia up to Boston. And yet we see people, as we saw tonight with Vice President Biden, suggesting that we should go into a nationwide economic shutdown. Based on this data, it simply makes no sense to subject citizens in places like Indiana, South Dakota, or Arkansas to these absolutely disastrous restrictions that we see in New York City.
Okay, and again, a cool interactive page. People can see the data for themselves at Heritage. Pastor, there are those who think your church, while you continue to meet, should be doing more as far as masks, social distancing, that kind of thing. Under the headline, California Church Defies Public Health Orders, they say churches obey all kinds of government guidelines, from fire codes to maximum occupancy limits. Surely trying to contain a pandemic falls within that category and is not a new government overreach or attempt to shut down churches. Other evangelicals have argued. What do you say?
Well, first of all, none of those normal government mandates and designs for the safety of people in general tell us we can't worship. We can't go to church and worship. And none of them tell us we can't sing, we can't fellowship, we can't shake hands. Specifically, we can't hug. They're so onerous that we couldn't possibly meet under those rules. And again, our people get it. 99.99% of the people in California have no lasting impact from COVID. The health director out here said the other day there's one COVID-related death per 100,000 at this particular time. We have 7,000 people in our church. We don't know anyone that's sick, and no one has been in the hospital with this.
Okay, well, we know you'll continue your services on Sunday. You're back in court next week. We'll track that. Pastor and Joel, thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, a Russian dissident.